Welcome to 412 Sports Talk, the number one podcast for Pittsburgh sports. Steelers, we talk it. Penguins, we talk it. Pirates, yeah, we talk it. With the biggest guests.
Bob Pompiani, Pittsburgh legend. Mayor Bill Peduto, the mayor of the city of Pittsburgh, is on with us. Doran Dickerson, West Allegheny legend.
Trey Essex, welcome.
Available on iTunes and Spotify. Hosted by Mad Chad Nolan.
It over too much. Well, now he's not turning it over at all.
And Eddie Provident.
We've got the best team in football.
And now, 412 Sports Talk.
Welcome back to the 412 Sports Talk, brought to you, as always, by MCM Studios. I'm your host, Eddie Provident. With me is my co-host, my man, Mad Chad. Mad Chad is actually in Twitter jail right now. He's in Twitter jail. He's in Facebook jail, which leads me to believe one thing. Are you New York Ranger fan 0248796? Or is it really Tony DeAngelo?
Oh no, I 100% believe that's Tony DeAngelo.
This is like the soap opera of hockey Twitter right now, man. This is like, it's so bizarrely true that I don't know that I could believe it. Like, it's that crazy.
And so I haven't been able to talk about it on social media because thankfully I'm not in jail, but I am in social media jail from the two big techies. They're against me. They're against liberals. I'm just kidding. But it's funny because with Tony DeAngelo, I see like every once in a while when you go through the comments, usually it's just people dunking on him. And then every once in a while, like some guy with a sunglasses Avi who definitely voted this way will go on there like, oh, this is cancel culture. And I will let everyone know that, listen, the National Hockey League, the players are 99% white. They're all millionaires. I promise you, more than 50% of them are Republican. I can promise you that. So this isn't some like a conspiracy theory against Republicans. If he was just a Trump supporter, none of this would be happening. This is about someone being a bad person. You can have bad ideologies, but be a good person up to a point. I need to stress that enough.
I know what you mean. No, there's people. There
are lines. Like if you want like segregation or like slavery and stuff like that. Like, okay, yeah, no. But like, yeah, if you're just like fiscally conservative, I have conservative friends. And even they are kind of like, I don't support that stuff over there. But like, okay, so this guy, like, he's been accused of racial slurs. His dad comes on and is like, yeah, I said racial slurs all the time. That's probably where he got it from. I'm like, what the hell? What the hell is this?
Then the whole Keandre Miller thing. I don't know if you saw that with.
Did they debunk that? I thought they said that they debunked it.
I'm not sure if they debunked it. The Rangers had an explanation for it, but it was pretty. It was a pretty like PR cover, like, it wasn't the best explanation in the world, but basically, Tony DeAngelo took the first goal puck from when Keandre Miller scored his first goal.
Who's an African American? Who's
an African American player? Oh, is he American or Canadian?
He's American.
Is he? Okay. Mm-hmm. Keandre Miller's first goal. If you look back at every other first goal for a Rangers player, after the game, there's always a picture taken with that puck. It's wrapped in tape like they always are with, first goal and the date and everything. Keandre Miller didn't have that photo. Now, the Rangers the organization claims that is because they were getting the puck framed, but that never stopped them from this picture before with anybody else. So most people believe that there was something there with Tony DeAngelo, and he was kind of, he said it was all in good fun, but it came out that the rest of the team didn't think it was in good fun. So at the very least, his teammates don't think that he's the best guy in the world. And then the final straw was the whole issue with the goalie, Grigoriev or whatever. I
thought it was Georgiev. Whatever.
Georgiev, yeah. You're right. But basically, they were arguing about a goal that was let up and whose fault it was. Then they got into a little scuffle in practice, and apparently Chris Kreider the new Captain America, came in and tried to break it up and punched Tony DeAngelo in the face, is what the reports are.
What a hero.
Yeah, right. And so, yeah, that's where it stands with DeAngelo. But the general manager of the Rangers, Jeff Gorton, not Jeff Gordon, the race car driver, Jeff Gorton, the general manager of the New York Rangers hockey team, basically said that he was already on thin ice, and they had already had issues with him in the past, and so this was kind of like he had already told Tony DeAngelo, look, this is you're on your last chance, and if you blow this last chance, you're gone. And Gordon thought that he had to keep up his word, and they waived him, and he cleared waivers, and no one's picked him up since.
You don't see this in hockey too much, right? I mean, in football, I think we've probably seen it more than anything. Like, I mean, this reminds me of like Antonio Brown's blow up with the Steelers, kind of like, you know, I think the Rangers tried to keep it at bay as much as possible. I mean, you're talking about a guy, I mean, I'm on his Wikipedia right now, right? So this isn't brand new. This isn't just the Trump stuff. We're going back to 2015. So this is before Trump was even in office.
Juniors and Sarnia.
And OHL, it says right here, both teams that he was in, played for the OHL for, the Sting and Greyhounds, both said that they went through a daily struggle trying to manage him, describing this experience as something akin to a gong show. He's been accused of saying racial slurs. He was
suspended indefinitely from Sarnia. Calling a teammate a racial slur during practice.
And listen, this guy's young, and you're talking about if another team does take him on, which I don't think so. I think he'll end up having to go play overseas or go do, you know, the walk of shame, maybe play in some of the lower leagues. But he's already been on two teams, and he is a guy that, like, if you took all this stuff away and just looked at his stats, even though he's very, very bad defensively, there's no doubt in my mind that an NHL team would go, you know what, I don't care if he's bad defensively because this guy is going to help us score goals. Because that's what he does. He does do that.
Look at the Penguins situation right now. If this was any other circumstance, you've got a bona fide offensive defenseman who is just floating out there in the NHL universe, and he's, you know, the Penguins have 6 injured defensemen right now. I would love to see a guy like Tony DeAngelo play on the power play and fill some minutes in, except I don't want Tony DeAngelo.
No,
and that's even the thing. Like, I don't want a guy like that on the team that I root for.
And again, this is going to debunk they're in it. They're trying to cancel him because he's an outspoken MAGA guy. Because I know for a fact that there are many players on the Penguins that voted for Donald Trump. The difference between them and Tony DeAngelo is they're not on Twitter trying to fight fans, saying racial slurs, saying that school shootings were hoaxes, and spreading conspiracy, supporting insurrection. Yeah. They probably already walked. You know what? A lot of those guys, the only reason why they supported that outside the aisle was because they're rich, so they wanted to protect their tax money.
And that's the thing. Like, we were talking about lines. Like, I like you said, I have conservative friends. I've got friends where I draw the line is when you are nasty with people, when you think that it's okay to hate somebody, when you think that it's okay to bully people or make fun of people for no reason whatsoever, like that's, or because of the color of their skin or because their sexuality or whatever the case, when you cross that line, that's where it ends for me. I don't care. Do I think there's a lot of issues with someone like Donald Trump, and voting for him kind of makes that worse? Yeah, absolutely. But I don't care as much who you vote for as how you treat people. And Tony DeAngelo has proven time and time and again that he doesn't treat people good. He's
his own teammates.
Yeah, his own teammates. He doesn't treat people decent. He's not it doesn't seem like, I don't know him personally, but it doesn't seem like that he's a decent person. And that's where the problem is. I don't want that kind of player on the team that I root for, not because of who he voted for, not because he's a Republican, not because he's conservative, but because he treats people bad. That's it.
No, if someone that was an outspoken Obama or Biden supporter did everything that Tony DeAngelo did, I would feel the exact same way about
100%. 100%. Yeah.
He's an asshole. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. I wouldn't want to play with him. Listen, I played team sports growing up, and I know guys. I always say, like, I knew guys like Antonio Brown and on that level. And I know guys like Tony DeAngelo, and I don't care how talented they are, it makes playing on that kind of a team insufferable. And I bet you the Rangers, once this dude's gone, I bet you they're going to go. I bet you even if they lost like 20 games in a row, they'd go, man, I'm glad that shit's over.
Yeah, I mean, like, and you could. I mean, they beat the Penguins after they dropped.
Yeah, the next day.
Like they're not in a situation right now where I think that they're a cup contender. Do I think that
they're still rebuild? Yeah.
Do I think that they could be a sneaky playoff team if things?
They're on the uptick.
Yeah, I do. I think that if things fall the right way, they can absolutely sneak into the playoffs. But they're not in a situation where like they need him to go on a championship run. They're in a situation where, all right, if somebody's locker room cancer and you're trying to build your nucleus, think about Alexis Lafreniere, right? Alexis Lafreniere. Do you want the future face of your franchise, who's an 18-year-old, to have to deal with a guy like Tony DeAngelo every day and potentially have that rub off on that kid?
And again,
that's an investment in the future of your franchise and the future of the league. You don't want that problem.
Right with that, they have Keandre Miller, who is one of their top prospects as well. It's like, what kind of message do you send to him if you would keep him on the team?
Yeah, and
like, oh, by the way, this guy is racist as hell, but you're just gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's a relief for Keandre Miller. And it sucks that we still have to do this in hockey. It sucks that we still have to have this conversation, but we all know that there is a difference in how black players are treated compared to white players.
And we talked about that before with Jesse Marshall about wanting to get the game more diversified.
And so the fact that you even put Keandre Miller in that situation as a young man, as anybody, but especially a young man, that to me kind of tells you where the priorities are if you would just leave this guy on the team. And so, we don't have to beat the dead horse, but I kind of wanted to bring it up in a joking matter, but also like, for a lot of people, this is a good sign for hockey that somebody like this just isn't getting brought back onto a team. And I believe in second chances and third chances, but you have to earn those. And so, hopefully DeAngelo has a change of heart. Hopefully he has a reckoning. Maybe this is the wake-up call that he needs, and hopefully he changes. Hopefully he comes out and apologizes and deals with the things that he needs to deal with and becomes a better person. But that doesn't happen in a week. That happens over years of time, and you have to show receipts.
Yeah, last thing I don't want to. Yeah, that's the last thing I want to see is that oh, I'm sorry. Okay, it's okay. Listen, you're talking to somebody. We all know that I made mistakes earlier in my life about a decade ago, actually, and it took years for even myself to go, okay, you know what? I think that's behind me now.
Yeah.
We're not talking about a week or two, so I definitely don't want to hear that at all.
That's not something that we see this season. This is something I'm hoping that a human being becomes a better person years down the line. Like that's, I hope that for everybody. I mean, even if you consider yourself a good person now, I hope that you grow. Like that's just
you should always be looking to be a better person.
But yeah, so that's that with Tony DeAngelo. They did beat the Penguins this week, and that's something that we've got to talk about too, because the Penguins are in a spot, man. They're it's funny when you look at we had Sean Tierney on a couple weeks ago, and if you look at his stat graphs and if you look at his charts and everything, the Penguins are actually playing average to above average hockey despite all of these injuries. The thing is they don't have the leads and the wins the wins in regulation to show for it. And outside of maybe two or three players, this team I think has underachieved, and you can put a lot of it on injuries. Having as many defensemen down as they do and then having a forward or two down, I mean, that definitely accounts for something. But at some point in time, man, we got to call a spade a spade. This team's struggling.
Yeah, I don't want to use injuries. For one thing, let's be real here. We could, if you want to look at the metrics, the number one thing I'm looking at is their goaltending. It ain't cutting it.
No.
And I know that there's other aspects that are going to go in there, because right away people are going to say, well, the defense isn't that good. And you would be correct. The defense does a good job of when they're playing, like the reason why their 5-on-5 stats look well though is their defense does a good job up until a team penetrates that perimeter, and then around the net they're actually pretty lousy. So that is a big problem, and that's been a problem for the last couple of years, pretty much since 2017. But they're not even getting average goaltending. Tristan Jarry has, and again, go back and listen to the podcast. I asked everybody, I said, I don't know if I'm sold on Jarry and DeSmith being good enough. And everybody was like, oh yeah, they're fine. And I was like, all right. I mean, and I think a lot of people thought that because they wanted Jarry to be the guy, because there was a lot of anti-Matt Murray sentiment coming from that. And Matt Murray would probably be doing even worse, to Tristan Jarry's credit, but they are not getting good enough goaltending. That is the number one issue to me. I get it. Sometimes the defense isn't playing well, but you got to make a save here and there. I mean, remember big saves? Like, when's the last time any Penn's goaltender in the last 3 years had a game where you went, you know what? They're throwing the kitchen sink at him and he is saving everything. And maybe Tristan Jarry had a game or two like that last year, but also, if you go back, Tristan Jarry was fantastic the first half of the season last year. But if you look at his stats from January till now, he has like a .906 save percentage. So
it's rough.
He's trending the wrong way, like Matt Murray did, where he got off to this rocks. But it didn't even Tristan Jarry's peak didn't last anywhere near as long as Matt Murray's did before Murray hit that downward spiral. Number two, Evgeny Malkin, man. Listen, I am the biggest. I don't know if I'm the biggest Evgeny Malkin, because there's some people on Twitter that are some big Evgeny Malkin fans, but I'm a stan of his. I'm a biased Gino fan. I always said he's the most underrated player of his generation. I think he's one of the 5 best players of his generation. It was a joke that he got left off the NHL 100. I think there's people that are way too hard on him throughout his career. You know who you are. You have a radio show from 3 to 6 on FM. There's people that have completely been like, there was always this weird, like, either you had to be like a Sid guy or a Gino fan. Like you couldn't shoot, like you couldn't, like, it was like these weird camps that happened with them. And there was some anti-Gino stuff where like, oh, he turns the puck over all the time, blah, 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 blah. Listen, he's a slam dunk Hall of Famer, and I think he's the 4th or 5th best player of his generation. Right now, he is shit. Can we just say that? Like, he played his best hockey game recently, but he's still, like, they aren't going anywhere if he's going to play like this. Yeah,
I think he's on that list, and I think that Chris Letang is on that list.
And you know how I feel about Chris Letang.
And here's another thing, man. Like you were talking about goaltending, and people blaming the defense for the goaltending. Where that stops with me, and again, I'm gonna call out Sean Tierney again. I'm on chartinghockey.ca looking at his daily goalie charts. And right now, if you look at the goal save versus expectation, so basically what this is how does your goalie perform relative to the workload that they face? So this basically takes defense into account. And if you have bad defense, this chart says, okay, well, we're going to take bad defense into account and say that goalie is going to be expected to give up more goals. Jarry is he is the second worst goalie in hockey right now for goals saved against expectations.
Is Murray the worst?
Ville Husso is the worst.
Oh, wow.
Matt Murray's down towards the bottom, too, though.
Yeah.
He's probably in the bottom 10. The point is, Tristan Jarry is letting up just a tick under a goal and a half based on what he is expected to give up, just a goal and a half more, which over, that's a lot, man. Like, over a 55, 56 game season, that's a problem. I mean, that means that the offense has to kick it into overdrive every time he's in net. Do I think that that's going to be the case for the whole season? No, but they can't have weeks at a time. We were talking about this with Jesse Marshall and Sean Tierney, where because this is a 55, 56 game season, everything's compressed and you can't have those 3 or 4 week lulls. You have to be able to shut that off quick and rebound quick. Thankfully, they're finding ways to win games in overtime and shootouts, so it hasn't killed them. but they've got like Tristan Jarry's got to figure it out because I don't think Casey DeSmith is the answer. Casey DeSmith has been slightly better than Tristan Jarry, but he's not the answer. They're either going to have to get like you said, they're either going to have to go out and get a goalie. I think you brought that up over the last couple of episodes. We may be looking at them on the goalie market. Or Tristan Jarry's going to have to figure it out. It's that simple. Or they're not. Like we talked about this months ago with Josh Yohe and Jesse Marshall on our first couple episodes. If Tristan Jarry sucks, this team is not a playoff team, plain and simple. And right now we're seeing that.
Hell, I think they were a border playoff team even if he was playing average. I think most people were expecting him to be an all-star goalie again. And I don't like these, especially these young goalies. I mean, how many young goalies do Pens fans have to see before they go, oh, wow, these goalies, they're up and down. I mean, Fleury was up and down. Murray was up and down. Jarry is going to be up and down. They don't have, Henrik Lundqvist or Patrick Waugh or Dominic Hasek in net. They have a young, decent goalie, and he's going to have rough nights. So yeah, I would like that. Now, here's what I hate about social media. Anytime you have an idea, right? My opinion is the Penguins should go and trade for a goaltender. And everybody goes, well, who do you want? Who can they get realistically? Listen, I'm not Pierre LeBron. Don't ask me that. I don't know. Go look at the rosters. Go look at a team that's probably going to be it's not hard to do. You go look at the standings and go, okay, well, these teams will probably be out of playoff contention right now. Let's see who they have that would probably be up for grabs. Any of those guys. That's my answer. They need to go make a trade, and I'm sure they're not going to do anything until they get this GM situation handled. But that's why I'm kind of excited about bringing in someone from the outside and who can look and go, you know what, these goalie stats are absolute shit. So we're going to go do that first. I don't know. So listen, go look at the rosters. There are plenty of what I would consider to be fine veteran goaltenders that are making anywhere from $2 to $4 million a year that you don't need to go out and I'm not asking them to go bring Fleury back or any of that crazy shit because A, they don't have the cap space, and B, they don't have the trade capital to do that. Somebody decent. One guy that I was looking at from the Coyotes have Darcy Kumper, who they probably are and then they have Antti Raanta. Go ask them how much Raanta would be. Someone like that. That's my answer.
And that's the thing, Chad. I think you nailed it right there. Get a veteran goaltender between $2 and $4 million. I'm not I don't want to sound like a hypocrite here because I was on board with letting Matt Murray walk and signing Tristan Jarry.
Well, so was I.
Right. And so, and I think that there's a difference between being on board with that and understanding that he's underperformed. I don't think that anybody that was a Tristan, that was a fan of Tristan Jarry right now is happy with how he played, and I don't think that there's any defense for how he's played.
Oh, there is, and it's mostly from the anti-Murray crowd. They're "Wow, you blah blah."
Realistically, I don't think that you. And so here's the thing with that. What my gripe is exactly what you were talking about. Going into and I remember specifically asking Josh Yohe this. I wasn't a fan of the Penguins going into this season with Tristan Jarry and Casey DeSmith only. I really would have liked to have seen them take some of that money that they spent on, these bottom six forwards that, are basically no names that you can plug and play. I would have loved to have seen them take some of that money and bring in a decent veteran goalie, because the goalie market this past offseason was actually really good. I think that they could have got somebody for decently cheap. I think they could have made a 1-year deal work, and that way they would have had a little bit of a safety net with Tristan Jarry. The problem right now is that Casey DeSmith is, while he's playing better than Tristan Jarry, he's still playing below average. If you look at the expected goals against chart, both of them are below average. Now, Tristan Jarry is way down below average. Casey DeSmith is a little over, right around a half a goal over his expectation, goal per game. So, yeah, that's a problem. And they really should have dealt with that in the offseason. And now we're in a situation where they have to deal with it now, and they're probably going to have to pay a higher premium. And it's going to be probably a draft pick or somebody on the roster that they deem expendable. And that's going to hurt. You know, we're already kind of a thin hockey team.
Or they can. I mean, here's the problem that they're in. Especially if you're the new GM coming in. You look at this team right now. You know, they're right there in the playoff picture. But if things get worse, they continue to pile up losses, and they don't have their first round pick. So then I'm almost at the point where, man, if we're in late March going into April and this team is in 5th place or 6th place, I'm almost wondering if for the first time in the Crosby era, if this team should be a seller at the trade deadline.
It's an interesting thought. And I mean, that new GM.
A new GM, I think, you know, just to like, okay.
Really puts them in a pickle, though, because the whole fan base, if they sell, if they're in 5th, like you said, they're in 5th place, they're 2 or 3 points out of a playoff spot, and they sell. While I think that that's probably the right thing to do, how is this fan base going to react to a new GM selling when they're in a playoff hunt? It's going to be...
Well, yeah, I don't think they will, but I mean, I think that would be the smart thing to do. It's funny, like, you know, you go on, you know, you put your GM, we all do the armchair GM stuff, or if you're on the NHL video game and you know, Crosby's getting older, Malkin's getting older, Letang's getting older. The team has, the last 3 years, every season has gotten worse and worse and worse. And you have nothing. The cupboard is bare. You have Samuel Polia, Nathan Lagarde might be all right, Pierre-Olivier Joseph, who we can talk about. It looks like one of the few bright spots. After that, there's nothing. Yeah. There's nothing. And
I don't know that. So okay, let's play again. Let's put the armchair GM in, and you know, we'll play a game here. So if you're looking at the Penguins' outlook for the future, okay, you've got POJ, John Marino on the blue line.
That's probably your 5-year plan.
Laguerre,
like those two are
Nathan
there.
Laguerre and
Samuel Polian.
And Samuel Polian. Those are your 4, right? Do we think that Tristan Jarry is the goalie of the future? Right now, I don't think so. I mean, I know they just signed him to a 3-year deal, but
you know how I feel about goalies. I feel like they're replaceable.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's your core 4, but like, let's be honest here. Is that core 4 a core 4 you win a cup with?
I'm just looking at the roster, right? Like, okay, you know, Crosby ain't going anywhere.
Gensel's going to be around.
Gensel ain't going anywhere. Although, man, that's another guy that he's been pretty underwhelming. He's starting to come along recently, but I'm looking at when I'm looking at the team, if we're hypothetically going to sell for assets. And just imagine even getting like another second round. You don't have your first round pick, and boy, is that going to hurt if Minnesota gets like a top 10 pick. Oof, that's going to be rough. But the guys that I'm looking at, where I'm going, okay, let's say we get to the trade deadline, we're in 5th or 6th place. We don't think we can contend for a cup this year. Who can we be? Who are we okay with losing that we know that we can get a good price tag from? There's 3 names that stick out to me that I don't think have to be in your long-term picture. One is Brandon Tanev. I love Brandon Tanev, but I know damn well that a team that is looking to just add that top 9 forward, that I know damn well there's a team that would go, hell yeah, give us Brandon Tanev. We'll take that speed and aggression and forecheck and all that stuff, and we'll throw you a 3rd round pick for him. I'm fine with that because I think Brandon Tanev would work better on a team like that that's going to be trying to push in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Brian Rust. I'm a big Brian Rust fan, and he's been great, and he has a really nice contract. But I think we've reached the peak of Brian Rust, right, in Pittsburgh. I think he's met his peak. And if this team isn't contending for a cup, I'm not quite sure. Like, I'm okay with losing him, especially if a team's going to hand me a 1st or 2nd round pick for him.
Yeah, if it's a 1st or 2nd round pick for him, I'm good with that.
And then the last one is Jason Zucker. And I love Jason Zucker. I love his game. I think he's had a rough start to the year, too.
How old is Zucker?
27.
See, I'd be inclined to maybe keep him around.
I mean, you just know you might get a 1st round pick back for him, though. And that's all where I'm going with. Oh, actually, no, he's 29.
Okay, yeah, then I would say. So here's where I'm at with it. I think I would, and I'm gonna, we'll steal a little bit of the whole Pirates argument here too. I am a firm believer that if you plan on blowing it up or rebuilding, you decimate it. Like you just and now with the Penguins, it's a little different right now because we've got 3 players that are, they're going to have at least 1 or 2 of them are going to have their names in the rafters. I believe. I think Crosby absolutely stays no matter what. You don't trade Crosby. Like you just don't do it. There's no way that I see you trade Crosby. Malkin and Letang, however. I know that you're not going to get fair value back for those 2, but here's where I don't care on that. Say this season ends up being a shit show, right? We don't make the playoffs by what? By April, March 8, or whenever the trade deadline is. We are nowhere near a playoff spot. Okay, it's over and done with, and the window's pretty much closed. I don't have any issues with trading Malkin and Letang and getting any kind of haul for them because
April 12th is the trade deadline.
Okay, so if the beginning of April you're so far out of it that you don't think you can get back into it, I'm cool with it. Like honestly, I'm fine with it. Like if you can get a first and a second for Gino, and if you can get or a high first round pick, if someone's willing to part ways with a top 10, top 15 pick, if a contender's willing to do that, dude, you know what? At this point in time, I think that as much as I think if they get hot and can go on a run, if you're out of the playoff picture, I think this is the year where you start just tearing it all down.
The problem with Malkin hypotheticals is he has a full no movement clause. So if he doesn't want to go, he's not going. I always that's why I was like I had a thing like I had to interrupt you because I see the trade Malkin. Listen, this is the first time in my life that I think I'd be okay with
and I've never been
bon voyage, Chris Letang. Imagine Montreal calls and they're like, hey, we're in first place. We got Jeff Petrie on the first line. Petrie. Imagine if we throw Chris Letang on our second line.
They've got draft picks to blow too. They've got a ton of picks. From their whole rebuild. Now, I will say this: if a contending team, I think where Malkin would be an interesting situation is if the Penguins would be willing to retain some salary, and a contending team calls, like say somebody okay, here's another hypothetical. Say Tampa finds out that what's his name, their big Russian star, Kucherov. Isn't going to be in the play because of the hip injury, won't be playing in the playoffs. That leaves them with some cap space. What if Tampa calls the Penguins and says, what do you want for Gino? And how much salary are you willing to retain to make this work? They send back somebody over to open up some cap space. We retain some cap, and they give us a first and a second. If you're Gino and you have a chance to go on another cup run, do you waive that no movement clause, or do you just stick around in Pittsburgh because that's
I think Gino just from I don't know of getting Malkin, but I can only go off of what I've seen and heard is that he's either going to play here or he's going to play in Russia. So and also there is multiple quotes from Sidney Crosby saying, you trade Gino, you might as well trade me. And so whether you like it or not, Malkin has the Penguins hostage.
Yeah. So
I don't foresee Malkin playing shit all year. I just don't.
I don't either. And I let me preface all of this with this is my worst case scenario situation. Here's what I think's going to happen. Okay. I think they're going to be a third or a fourth seed going into the playoffs. They're probably going to need to get a goalie, and I think that Gino's going to turn it on, and I think Letang's going to turn it around. I don't think that any of what we just talked about is actually going to come into play. I'm just for sake of argument, play an armchair GM. What if the worst case scenario happens? That's what I'd be looking at. But
here's my biggest fear, and I'll end it with this. Here's my biggest fear is I'm as a Pens fan, I'm totally fine if a new GM comes in here and does what we talked about. Hey, I don't think this team is even close to a championship team. Let's get some assets back for once. We're not rebuilding this. We're going to recoup is the word that I would use,
which we'll be talking about later in the show.
Right. Let's recoup. Let's see who we don't see in our long-term plans more than 2 years from now. Brian Rust, the guys we talked about, Jason Zucker, Brian Rust, maybe even Kasperi Kapanen, Chris Letang.
I actually like Kapanen.
I love Kapanen. These are guys that I know that they can get some first or second round picks for. And then you go, okay, now next year, now we have assets. Now we have cap space. You get a new GM, and now next year you go right back at it again and try to become a cup contender. To me, that would be the smart play. My biggest fear is that they're in fourth place still at the trade deadline, and these guys are giving up more draft picks to try to pretend they're going to win a championship.
Yeah, I think the only way I would be comfortable with them giving away draft picks this year is if somehow they make a surge and are like legitimate.
Yeah, but I don't see it. I
don't see it happening. I like I said, if they just get into the playoffs with Sid and Gino and Letang, I think that the three of them know how to turn it on, and I think that they have a chance. But unless they are like banging on the door and they're competing with Colorado and Tampa in Boston, like I don't want them to be a buyer.
Right? Go get a goalie. That's fine. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it.
So, speaking of Pittsburgh teams with frustrating off seasons and bad cap situations and aging superstars, when we come back from this break, we're going to break down some of the Steelers offseason moves so far and talk about what the outlook is for the draft and get into a little bit of Super Bowl talk. So we're going to take a quick break. Have a word from our sponsors, MCM Studios. This is the 412 Sports Talk Podcast. We'll be right back after this. 412 Sports Talk family, what's going on? It's your guy Eddie P. I'm sitting in MCM Studios right now with our sponsor, my man Mike Hitt. Mike, what's going on, brother?
What's up, bro? 412 Sports Talk Podcast, Pittsburgh, PA. What is up?
What we're doing is, we're a local podcast. We talk Pittsburgh sports. We're completely supported by people that are either from Pittsburgh or have ties to Pittsburgh. And even our sponsor, MCM Studios, is over in Allentown in the heart of the city of Pittsburgh. But I wanted to bring you into the studio so you could see what Mike's got going on and you can see a little bit of, what happens behind the scenes here at MCM Studios. Mm-hmm. So, Mike, what are you working on right now, man?
I'm working with always a stable of talented artists. Whether they're from Pittsburgh, they come to Pittsburgh to come to MCM Studios, they move here from out of town, whatever the case may be, a young, old, guy, girl, pop, rock, reggae, R&B, trap music. I just work with a lot of guys that need the love and the attention and the direction in order to get their sound and their business together and their whole artistry, in a position that is the quality and the vision that they were looking for. I kind of just help them bring all that together. So they're like, oh, or I would have been lost for the next 3 years if you wouldn't have said, hey, go do this, or sing your song like this, or write a song like this, or this is a good look for you as an artist. That's really what MCM Studios does, and what I have going on is just continually helping artists. If they get famous, they get famous. If they don't, they don't. But just helping them along on this artistic journey so they can look back and it felt like it was worth it.
Yes. I know how much it means to be a musician and need that backup. And I'll be honest with you, Mike has been a big, big part of the business side of 412 Sports Talk and how much we've grown as a business too. Helping us with the legal side of things, giving us all the tips that he's learned in 10, 11 years of business. So, like I said, I just wanted to get you guys to take a look at the studio, hear it from Mike himself, and just get a little bit of the behind the scenes of one of our sponsors, our first sponsor, MCM Studios. And you can check them out at 412mcmstudios.com. You can check them out on Facebook at MCM Studios Pittsburgh. Check Mike out on Twitter at Mike Hitman with 2 T's. Let's build this Pittsburgh community because there's a lot of cool people, a lot of talented people, and a lot of great things going on in the city. Mike, you got anything else to leave them with?
Support the people around you that are doing cool things. If you can see that they're serious and they're dedicated and they're putting the time and they're making the investment in themselves at least make, at the very minimum, the investment of believing in them. That's what I did for 412 Sports Talk podcast. That's what I do at the studio with the artist. Just look at your life as one big investment, and I really think by doing that, we can all help bring everybody around us up.
So there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed this little mini tour. We'll be back with stuff like this. In the meantime, again, I'm Eddie Provident. For Mad Chad Nolan, for my man Mike Hitt, we'll catch you later.
Peace.
Welcome back to the 412 Sports Talk podcast, brought to you by MCM Studios. I am your host, Eddie Provident. With me is my co-host, Mad Chad. We just got done talking about the Penguins and all of their cap woes and future problems and everything like that. And now we get to talk about the exact same thing, but this time with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Chad, we've got a lot of things going on with the Steelers right now. They've hired a new offensive coordinator. They hired not a new offensive line coach, but they promoted the assistant offensive line coach. They have they've got to figure out the Big Ben situation. They've got to figure out the draft. They've got a lot of question marks, a lot of free agents that are going to be leaving. What's your just flyover view of the offseason for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
So, I mean, I've said it all along that, okay, if you don't bring Ben Roethlisberger back, and we just got a quote from the Steelers front office saying it still might not work out financially. And, well, if you go on Cap Geek or Spot Track or whatever, one of those cap websites, you'll see that it don't look good cap-wise.
He would basically have to play for about $3 million to make
it.
In real money. Money.
And then you have to fight the union on that and do all kind of crazy stuff with all kind of restructuring and whatever. But here, my point has always been, if you don't bring Ben back, to me that says rebuild. Mm-hmm. And I know, it's the Steelers' way. We don't rebuild. Listen, I don't give it. I think there's one term in Pittsburgh sports that I hate more than anything, and it's the Steelers' way, because it's the biggest myth in the world. It does not exist. There is no Steelers way, as far as character goes, because I can give you 1,000 things that would make that hypocritical. And as far as the rebuild goes, I mean, if they never rebuilt, then they wouldn't have never even drafted Ben Roethlisberger. Mm-hmm. So that right there makes them sound stupid with that. But to me, in my mind, if you're either starting Mason Rudolph or trading up to get a quarterback or drafting a quarterback in the first round, that tells me you do not plan to try to contend for a Super Bowl next year. And that's fine. But don't do the pirate stuff. I hate it. I hate it when teams are disingenuous.
Or worse, the one leg in, one leg out thing. Go all in on one or the other, man.
Yeah.
And be honest about it.
If you're going to bring Ben back, then your focus in the draft should be the offensive line and the running game, so that he doesn't have to throw the ball 50 times a game.
100%.
And I still think they're an 11-win team if that happens. Maybe they're a wild card team. But if Ben's not coming back, you do the Troy Polamalu thing, like, hey, thanks, but no thanks. We'll have the ceremony for you. We'll see you at the Hall of Fame. It's been great. It's been real. Then I don't want to hear no Super Bowl talk, because that ain't happening. It's probably not happening with Ben.
No.
And the one thing I am annoyed about with this whole thing, and I know that it's right now it's the cool thing to hate Ben, and here's what's going to happen. In 6 years from now, it's going to be, man, Ben was good. Remember those highlights? Wow, look at those stats. I didn't realize he was that good, because it's always right now, the last time we saw him, he threw 4 interceptions in a playoff game. So right now, it's very, very cool to hate it, to not like him. But I did just watch a season where he went 12-3 and threw 33 touchdown passes and 10 interceptions. Only 3 other quarterbacks in the league had more touchdown passes than him. And you're talking about the team went from 8-8 to 12-4. They're going to go backwards. I hope everyone knows that. Unless they trade for Deshaun Watson, which I'm all about, but they're not going to do it.
No.
So why even talk about it?
I'm with you, and I've had a lot of time to think about this, and I think that there's two logical options for the Steelers here. There's two options on the table. They need to pick one and go with it. And I think that it's dependent upon what happens with, like with everything you said with, the Ben money situation and if they're able to make that work. But there's two options, and here's the two options in my mind. Option one, which is what I would prefer, is Ben comes back for one more year. Like you said, they address the offensive line and the running back situation, and they build an offense that doesn't need Ben to throw exactly what you said. I hate to repeat you, but doesn't need Ben to throw 50 times a game. Because, as you said, 33 touchdowns to 10 picks. And, yeah, it was a lot of short and intermediate stuff. But here's the thing with that. His play did taper off towards the end of the season, but I think his play tapered off towards the end of the season because he was dealing with a knee issue from the Dallas game that everyone seems to forget about. He had that injury in Dallas and never really took any time off.
And look at his stats before the Dallas game and after the Dallas game.
They didn't have an actual bye week at all, a real bye week. There was no such thing this year. And they were depending on him towards the end of the season for 45, 50 throws a game. So if you can bring that down to about 30 to 35 attempts a game, get a running game that's not the best in the league, just league average.
Decent.
Yeah, just give me 15.
I want Najee Harris.
Yeah. Just give me an average running game and put an offensive line together that could actually hold a block. Then I still think that Ben Roethlisberger is a good enough quarterback under those circumstances to be an 11 to 12 win team and get into the playoffs and make some noise. I still think he has that in him. Now that's option one. Option two is just saying, you know what, even with Ben, we're not going to win a Super Bowl. He's gone. You bring in Mason Rudolph and Josh Dobbs are your quarterbacks for this year.
Oh, or Dwayne Haskins.
Or Dwayne Haskins. I keep forgetting that they signed him. Now, though that's your quarterback. Don't even spend money on a quarterback in the offseason. Those are your three quarterbacks. If you catch lightning in a bottle with one of the three of them, beautiful. That's great. That's awesome. It's highly unlikely, but if that's the case, beautiful. But if not, you got rid of that 1 year of Ben's imaginary money. You didn't pay any more money into a veteran quarterback. You didn't waste any money on somebody that's only going to be here for a year or two. And you probably are going to be bad enough to get a top 10 pick or a top 15 pick and be able to trade up or get the quarterback of your future in the draft. Those are your two options if you're the Steelers. I don't see there being a third option that is an actual realistic option because, like you said, they're not going to trade for Deshaun Watson. Those are your options. Either go into the year with Rudolph, Dobbs, and Haskins and see what happens and probably get a high draft pick next year, or build around Ben so that he doesn't have to throw the ball 50 times a game. That's it.
I mean, honestly, they have to do those things down the line anyways. For anyone that say, I keep seeing, it's Steelers need a new quarterback. Steelers need a new quarterback. Listen, I'm not going to lie. As a Ben fan, I'm kind of excited of the post-Ben era because I can't wait to hear the excuses for why the next quarterback doesn't win the Super Bowl or goes 8-8 or it's going, the line's bad. The receivers are dropping passes. The run game's not good. And I'm going to come around and go, that's quite interesting there, buddy. Well, yeah, that's really interesting. Now, I will say, well, to be fair, they were paying Ben Roethlisberger $35 million a year, so he is expected to lift them up, but he did. Did you not watch the offense 2 years ago versus the offense this year? As bad as the offense was this year, they look like the goddamn 2000 Vikings compared to the season before.
Yeah,
they scored I think they scored 17 more touchdowns. That's a lot. That's like a touchdown a game.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview with one of the guys from Pro Football Focus, and they were talking about Mason Rudolph. And Mason Rudolph, I agree with, I can't remember who it was, but I finally agreed with Pro Football Focus. I think that Mason Rudolph is a fringe NFL starter at best.
He's a backup.
Yeah, he is and
he might be a decent backup.
He's a 31, 32, 30. Like, he's in that range. Like, if he needs to be your starter, you're probably not going to have a top 10, top 15 starter in the league. But if he's your backup, you're in a good situation.
I agree.
Now, I'm fine with a year of that. Okay, I'm absolutely cool with a year of that. And look, I actually think with Matt Canada, as the offensive coordinator, Josh Dobbs is probably the better solution at quarterback next year.
Probably.
I think Josh Dobbs in a Matt Canada offense is a pretty intriguing prospect. I don't think that it's a Super Bowl contender, but it could be a lot of fun. It's going to be a fun football team to watch. You're going to get a lot of crazy stuff, but that's it. I mean, like, for the only road that the Steelers have to Super Bowl contention next year is if Ben Roethlisberger puts one more year of Ben Roethlisberger type play together with a good offensive line and a good running game.
Yeah, just imagine their running game, yards per carry, they were in the bottom 5. Total rushing yards, bottom 5.
What if they're in the top? What if they're in that?
What if they're just in the middle of the pack?
Yeah.
And he still has listen, I don't care who you are. When you're plus 23 touchdowns, the interceptions, it's good. So let's say he throws for less touchdowns because he's handing the ball off to hopefully Najee Harris, who I'm going to beat that drum for a while now.
And if they can't get Najee Harris, I'm absolutely cool with Travis Etienne too. I think.
Yeah, you probably if Harris isn't there, then you probably wait to the second round to draft the running back, and you address the offensive line or tight end, because as great as not great, as good as Eric Ebron was. They need a tight end that can block. They just have to have a tight end that can block. You can go watch whatever play you want. And Eric Ebron, God bless his heart, he did try to block. He can't block.
No,
he can't,
but
block.
if you have him with another tight end that can block, you
just use Ebron as a receiver.
Regardless, despite what all of these idiots in the Pittsburgh media, and I'm done not calling names out anymore. These idiots like Chris Muller and Mark Madden and that think that Juju should walk, that the Steelers should let Juju go just because of his brand and because of the kind of personality he is. Man, that's
clickbait. It's clickbait.
BS. I am so tired of it. If they bring back Juju, this receiving core next year is going to be really good. They're going to have Juju, James Washington, Deontay Johnson, and Chase Claypool. Now picture this: Ben with an offensive line that can give him some time, a decent running game, an average running game, and those 4 wide receivers. You don't think that they could do some damage with Ben having another year with Chase Claypool, another year for Deontay Johnson to develop and build his confidence up, and hopefully not have the drops this next year? You don't think that Juju is gonna have a chip on his shoulder and something to prove next year? That could be a deadly offense if Ben Roethlisberger can put one more season together.
Yeah, I do like that. I mean, I'm a Ben fan, so if Ben comes back, I'm gonna be A-okay. I don't know if they're a Super Bowl contender, whether Ben comes back or not, especially if Bud Dupree's 100% gonna leave via free agency. I think their defense is gonna take a step back. Even though I'm high on Highsmith, I don't think they have this like all-world defense. I think nowadays you have to have a top 5 offense to compete. So I don't know, but I'm fine with Ben coming back just for one last hurrah. Like, hey, who gives a shit? But
I think that they could put a team together if they address the offensive line and the running backs.
If I were in charge, let's make Chad the GM for a second.
We're back to armchair GM.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
To me, the option that all the options on Twitter have besides Deshaun Watson, which again is not going to happen. That was the one where I went, yeah, well, of course that's a no-brainer. I've seen some. I remember like there was Yinzers that wanted to trade for Stafford. Oh yeah, I'm glad as hell they didn't give all that up for Matt Stafford.
Could you imagine what they would have had to give? Because we don't have a quarterback like
right.
that.
We're not swapping. So
that's a lot, man.
So good luck with the Rams for that. I hope it pays off. It's not going to. But the only other name that I've seen that I didn't go, well, that's a stupid ass idea, is trading up for Trey Lance. That's the only other thing that I've seen.
I'm now good with that.
They just gave up a whole bunch of draft capital 2 years ago to trade up for Devin Bush. My thing is, well, they're not going to do that again. But also I'm thinking, if you're willing to give all that up to trade up for a middle linebacker, well, you better be able to trade up for it to get a quarterback, because Trey Lance, I know he's a raw prospect and he didn't play, but they are implementing the Canada offense.
I was just going to say Trey Lance and a Matt Canada offense, man.
That's the only other option that I've seen that I went, all right, that's a real plan. That's a real plan that I see.
I got 2 that I want to throw at you. The first one is, what would you be if you're the Steelers GM, what package would you be comfortable putting together for Deshaun Watson?
for Deshaun Watson.
If you knew you were getting Deshaun Watson for 5 years, you were getting him on a contract, he's your quarterback of the future. What's your comfort level?
So obviously you're going to give them the 24th pick this year, and we're giving them our first round pick next year, maybe even the first round pick after that. So maybe 3 and Minkah Fitzpatrick.
You'd be good with that?
Mm-hmm. Deshaun Watson is a top to me. I think if I'm looking at the quarterbacks, he's probably the 5th, maybe the 5th best quarterback in the league right now.
Yeah. I don't know their quarterback depth chart, but I would probably go, if it would help at all. I'm with you. I'm fine with giving up 3 first round picks for him. I'm good with it. I think to get your quarterback of the future and
maybe with Finka, with Minkah, adding Minkah in there, only have to give up the 2.
Yeah, I would even say, like, okay, if you're going to do that, then maybe throw in Mason Rudolph just so that they have a quarterback to play with. Just so, I don't think they care, but he's a cheap option to get some. When you're looking at the cap situation to bring Deshaun Watson, and you got to cut like any penny you can. So I'd probably just throw Mason Rudolph in there just to get the contract off the books. But yeah, I'm thinking 3 firsts, and I know I've heard TJ Watt's name thrown around.
I replaced him with Minkah.
I don't know that I want to go TJ Watt. I mean, I get the argument, but boy, he's got a chance to be like a top 3 defensive player. I mean, he already is a top 3, top 5 defensive player in the NFL, but he's got a chance to be like, something that we haven't seen in Pittsburgh in a long time. And I don't know that I'd want to part ways with him. If you're parting ways with TJ Watt, it's definitely not going to be more than 2 first round picks, is what I would say. And I think I'd rather go with what you said, like Minkah and 3 firsts. Man, that's a tough one though, man, because I mean, you are getting a bona fide quarterback,
franchise quarterback.
Yeah. Speaking of Deshaun Watson, here's another one I wanted to throw at you. This doesn't have anything to do with the Steelers, and this wasn't even on my list for the show. But since we're talking Deshaun Watson, I was kind of like spitballing with my dad a couple weeks ago, and him and I were talking about just all the different moves in the NFL. If you're Jacksonville, and you've got all of the draft picks and all of the cap space that they have, okay, do you draft Trevor Lawrence first overall? Or do you put a trade together for Deshaun Watson and get a proven commodity?
I don't think Houston would trade in division.
You don't think?
Mm-mm. I wouldn't. Well, I'm not going to trade my division rival on my franchise quarterback.
I kind of forgot that they are in the same division.
The only thing I would use them for is leverage for another trade. I think even another team would call the bluff. That would have been like the Steelers offering Ben to the Browns 8-10 years ago. Like because that.
I thought about that from the Jacksonville standpoint.
Oh, it makes sense for them because a proven quarterback versus an unproven quarterback. I'm taking the proven quarterback every time.
I mean, it does make sense for Houston from the standpoint that, like, if you're trying to get a quarterback back in this.
Oh, yeah.
Trevor Lawrence is a great option. I mean, I do think he's going to be a stud. I mean, I don't think he's going to be a bust. I think he's got every tool that you need, but he's not proven. And so anyway, that was just an aside. So my second question, as far as the Steelers go, so Deshaun Watson was the first one. The second one was something that our boy Derek, 2-time show guest, we can officially call him friend of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Derek has been really breaking down a lot of quarterback video. And I keep seeing him breaking down video of Mac Jones. You don't like Mac Jones? Because I think if you can get Mac Jones in the second round.
Oh, second round. I don't think he's going to go. I don't
think he's going to fall to the second round. But if by some miracle he does.
Yeah, sure.
Or would you trade up in the second round to get Mac Jones? So say Mac Jones is available mid second round. Would you trade up to get him?
No,
I would. I honestly,
that's
I would.
Fine. Hey, that's fine.
I think that he's put enough tape out, and I think that he's got the pedigree to where it's another raw situation. And I bring this up. This is if you miss on Lance and you miss on every other quarterback.
I get it.
Yeah.
Then I try again. Then I just try again next year.
Yeah.
That's just how I am.
Yeah, and I get that too. I just like he's an interesting name that
You're not the only person that likes him.
Yeah,
my friend Joe, he listens to the show. He likes him. He'll probably agree with you.
He throws a good football, man, and he's
totally get it.
Yeah, he's got. I mean, like when you're playing in the SEC, I still think that's the closest you're going to get to playing in the NFL. And so he's proven it now. He's had look at the receivers he's had. So I mean, you've got to take that into account.
I think we don't go on a tangent, but I think that 2 years ago they had, I mean, probably the best receiving core in the entire in the history of college football. Yeah, literally. I don't see him as a franchise quarterback. He might be a decent quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah.
I don't see his ceiling. To me, and again, this is why I think once Ben leaves, sometimes you don't miss something until they're gone, right? We that's the old ass cliche saying, but it's true because you see how competitive it is to get these young quarterbacks, and then a lot of them don't pan out.
The thing
it's going to be fun.
The thing that makes me laugh though about the offseason, and I've seen a few tweets about this, is every quarterback that's unhappy with their team right now, Yinzers are like, oh, there's our guy. Yep. Like Aaron Rodgers is having issues with the Packers. Oh, he's going to end up in Pittsburgh. Look, man, like let's be realistic here. It's either going to be a combination of Mason Rudolph, Josh Dobbs, and Dwayne Haskins, or it's going to be Ben Roethlisberger for one more year. And then they're going to draft a guy. Or they're going to draft a guy. That's your options here in Pittsburgh. Yeah. I will say this. I know that I am on an island. I'm probably like a small minority here. Dwayne Haskins has proven to be an issue. It did not work with him in Washington whatsoever. I think that they reached for him, picking him as high as they did. I don't think he was a high first round or mid first round talent, but I do think he is a talented guy. He does remind me a little bit of Ben, where he's a big body. He's not super mobile, but he's a big body with a good arm. There is an outside chance that if they can get his head on right and he grasps Canada's offense, there's an outside chance that they can make something work with him for a few years, because he's still young. He came out young. He's still a young dude, and if he can at all figure it out, get his head on right, I think that there's enough talent to work with there. I would actually say out of the three quarterbacks that we have, there's your best option long term, if they can get his head together. That's a big if. That is a huge if. But I would actually rather try to work with him than Mason Rudolph. From what I've seen from Mason Rudolph, I think that Haskins has a higher upside. It's just getting to that upside.
You're like asking me like what low calorie beer I want to drink.
Look, man, I'm just saying, like I liked at first the Dwayne Haskins pick from signing for me was like, what are they thinking? Why are they doing that? The more I've had time to think about it, and I saw like someone broke down the contract and how it works out for the Steelers. It is 100% low risk. They can cut ties with him. I think we lost your audio, Chad. But
I'm back.
Yeah, there you go. It's 100% low risk for the Steelers, and it's either going to work out or they just cut ties with him. And would that be the most Pittsburgh? Would that be the most Steelers thing to happen though if Dwayne Haskins ended up being the quarterback of the future here?
My prediction was that he's gonna look great in the preseason, and the stock is gonna go like this, and then I don't see him being anything more than like a 20 touchdown, 12 interception type guy. Like I even at Ohio State, he made decisions that you would be like, what the hell? Where the hell is that?
The odds are in your favor here. The odds are definitely in your favor. I'm just saying, it could be a cool situation.
But this whole conversation, which to me is like, again, I hope everyone that blamed everything that ever happened on Ben, I hope you're ready. I hope you're ready for post-life Ben. Like, because I lived
the Mike Tomczak, Kent Graham, Cordell Stewart, Neil O'Donnell, Bobby Brister, Like that whole
So
that whole era, man.
If next year the quarterbacks are Haskins and Rudolph, catch me watching 2007 Ben Roethlisberger highlights on YouTube because enjoy it. And I'm not gonna listen. Here's the difference, and we can end this segment on this, but I'm not rooting for any of these guys to fail, so I can be the guy like some of these. I told you guys so. The only thing I'm gonna say is I told you so is, man, it's really hard to find a franchise quarterback, isn't it? Go ask all these other teams.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like, look at in the last 15 years, look at the Steelers' record of the last 15, the Ben Roethlisberger era, and look at all of these other teams. Look at the Cleveland Browns. They've had 15 quarterbacks.
The Browns, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Texans.
Not had anything, man. Like the
Raiders.
And look, it's not like they haven't drafted guys, man. Like, so even they've drafted, like, Tim Couch was a guy. Johnny Manziel was supposed to be a big deal.
The Browns drafted 5 quarterbacks in the first round, and none of them panned out.
Sanchez was supposed to be the next big thing in Washington. Sam Darnold was supposed to be the next big thing in Washington, or
Jamarcus Russell,
in New York. Yeah, Jamarcus Russell was a big. It is so hard to find the quarterback, man. Like, look at even going back further than all of that. 3rd overall pick with a cannon, Joey Harrington to the Lions. Like, everybody thought that he's a can't miss. This dude's going to be amazing. He flops. Like, it is so hard to get what the Steelers got on the field from Ben Roethlisberger. And when you don't have it, boy, are times tough in the NFL, man.
And maybe I'll be proven wrong, and maybe they get a quarterback this year or next year, and they go right back to having a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. I hope they do. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
that would be really
cool.
Lucky. But I'm betting against it. I'm shorting the stock. Am I allowed to do that nowadays, or am I like MAGA now? I don't know how that works. I'm betting against it. Because I think it's so goddamn hard, especially when you don't generally draft 10. And here's the problem with the Steelers is if they don't have Ben next year, I'm worried they're going to be like the Penguins, where they're like lukewarm, where like, again, they go 8. The worst thing that could happen is they go like they're in purgatory, 8-8, 9-7 the next 2 seasons.
Yeah, I think that I think next season, if they don't get a quarterback in the draft this year, there's no doubt that even if they are a fringe playoff team next year, they have to trade up and get the
trade up
next year.
Everything. Give your next 10 picks.
Yep. You've got to get your quarterback next year,
because you'll be in lukewarm purgatory for the next foreseeable future, where you're like, you might even have a year or two where like you have a good defense and a good running game, and you pull an 11-5 out of your ass, and
that's all well and good, but you've got to have, and in the AFC, you've got to have somebody that can compete with Patrick Mahomes. If you don't have
not even just Mahomes. I mean, assuming Washington stays in the AFC, the Bengals got Joe Burrow, the Ravens got Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, just in our division. You've got to have a quarterback to go up in our division. But I'm saying, if you want to be a realistic Super Bowl contender in the AFC, you know the standard. You know what the standard is. You know who you've got to compete against. And let's be real for a quick second here. Is Mason Rudolph that? No. Is Josh Dobbs that? No. Is Dwayne Haskins that? No. So you better find him, or it's going to be a long Patrick Mahomes career in Pittsburgh. That's it. That's where the Steelers are with that. And speaking of Patrick Mahomes, how's that for a segue? Super Bowl predictions. What do you got for me?
Well, I don't like doing head-to-head. I very rarely do like, I think this team's going to win, because so many different things could happen. I remember I bet on the Chiefs to beat the Browns straight up, and then Mahomes and left and I was like, oh my God, I was like literally sweating, and I was like, this is why I shouldn't gamble. It's an addiction, and I still gamble. As long as Travis Kelce scores a touchdown, I'm pretty cool on my end. I hope the Chiefs win. I know we don't have a lot of time left, but the whole thing that made me really nauseated about what took place last week was Tom Brady throwing 3 interceptions in a row, and then like got a public fellatio after the game. And I was just like, wait a minute, I didn't think that you could even win a game when your quarterback threw 3 interceptions, because that's what people tell me all the time. When Ben throws even 1 interception, Ben got blamed for the Jaguars game, and that's going to sound like I'm salty, and I am salty. I'm sick of these BS biased narratives. Ben got blamed for the Jaguars game. He threw 5 touchdowns and 1 pick, and Brady throws 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, all in the second half, and his defense bailed him out, and it's salty. I understand it. I really hope Kansas City wins. I don't want to see Tom Brady and Antonio Brown win a Super Bowl.
No, that's going to be.
And by the way, how annoying has this AB? Have you noticed that like the media has tried to force that? Because I haven't seen any Steelers fans. I follow almost 1,000 Pittsburgh sports fans. I have not seen one person go, I hate that Antonio Brown. But you know why? Because they've been irrelevant. They didn't even play.
Yeah, like AB has been more relevant than Bell.
Yeah, but
at least he's a part of that offense.
Yeah, he's a third receiver.
Right. But and he's caught a couple of touchdown passes, but Bell I think has 1 touchdown.
But if AB had gone in the playoffs and like had like a Santonio Holmes-esque playoff performance, then you'd go, oh shit, he showed us.
Yeah.
But he had
a couple of touchdowns,
he had 3 catches the week before, and then he didn't play in the championship
game. He was hurt in the championship
So
game.
to me, it's irrelevant. If he goes out there and wins Super Bowl MVP, then we'll talk about that. And God, that would be like my worst nightmare.
But it would actually kind of be hilarious.
There's definitely less. I don't know, like Le'Veon Bell. I truly feel like he's irrelevant.
He gets a couple of balls a game, and, just to get him in the.
But not even that. It wasn't like it wasn't the same thing. It wasn't the same thing. He left strictly for money reasons.
Yeah, like for me, Bell getting a Super Bowl ring is like, okay, cool, man. Like you bet on yourself, work out, but hey, you bounce back. You rode a great offense to a ring. Congratulations. Brown is a little more frustrating for me because of how he left and the off the field stuff. If I am frustrated with Ben and like all these other players with their off the field stuff, all the off the field stuff that AB did, it's the same.
He's a scumbag.
He's terrible. Yeah.
But here's the worst thing about it was, it's like, look, I saw someone on Facebook who I know hates Ben and was like, told y'all AB and Lev Bell were in the Super Bowl. Ben is sitting at home. And I'm like, Ben has 2 rings. Even whoever wins this game, Ben's still going to have twice as many rings as them.
I'm not going to repeat everything. But what did they do? You know what I mean? Like it's
to me, it's an indictment on them that they had to go be role players and bandwagon themselves to get a ring.
I think that as far as the game goes, and again, this could be my bias coming out. I don't care. I honestly think that Patrick Mahomes has a chance to, I think he knows the chance that he has, the opportunity in front of him. If he could beat Brady, and even a 43-year-old Brady, but if he could beat Tom Brady and do it handily and have like the game of his career in a Super Bowl, that's going to be a narrative, and that's going to basically vault him, for the rest of his career into superstar top 3 of all time status. That's the trajectory he's going to be on.
I think it's unfair. I think it's a little unfair to Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, because I really think that both those two are just as good as anybody else has been at their positions the last 5 years.
It's funny because we had this conversation earlier in the season about Kelsey being one of the greatest of all time.
I think he's one of the 5 best of his era.
And to your credit, you said that 7 or 8 weeks ago on the show. It might even been longer than that. And I was a little more hesitant, and this season has completely proven me wrong and proven you right. He is absolutely one of the best at the tight end position, if not just his era, definitely all time. I think, though, that Mahomes has a chance with a big game and a win to really like start building a legacy here. And I actually think the Chiefs are going to win pretty handily.
I just don't think Tampa Bay can score with them. Even like Kansas City is one of those teams where like, you think you have them. Like I wouldn't even be surprised if Tampa Bay's leading at halftime and everybody's like, "Oh, look!"
The Chiefs do that all the time, man.
Try, dude. You have to play them for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'll say this about the Chiefs defense: it's proof that you don't need to have the days of the 2008 Steelers. they're done. What you need to have right now is a defense that makes plays.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you give up points and yards.
Make the
Give
plays
them up.
when you need them. Yep.
And we talked about that. I said, how can you, like, a member of the Steelers? Oh yes, the Steelers turned the ball over 4 times. Well, how about you create a turnover?
Right. And you know who on the Chiefs defense who I love for that is Tyrann Mathieu.
Oh yeah.
It's like whenever they need a big play,
Honey Badger.
somehow, some way he comes up with the big play. He is such an underrated defensive
Well, they said
player,
that they coached them. That's how they coach them. They go, you know what? If we give up a touchdown or a 30-yard, it's all right. It's all right. Play the ball. Keep playing the ball. And Brady just threw 3 interceptions. Listen, I'm about to go make a bet that Brady throws at least 1 pick in this game because I think it's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to be as close as people think. I think the Chiefs are going to beat up on Tampa pretty bad. Personally, I actually think this might be a 2-digit win. But, you know, I guess we'll see. And that, like I said, that could be me being biased because Mahomes is my favorite player. But, I think that the Chiefs win pretty handily, and I don't think it's going to be a particularly close game. I do, just for the sake of entertainment, hope that we get one of those GOAT battles where, you know, they're both throwing for 4 or 5 touchdowns, and it comes down to the last drive, and Mahomes has the ball in his hands and, you know, throws a deep ball to Tyreek Hill or something like that. I'd love to see something like that. That'd be great. But, yeah, that's my thoughts on it. We, in a little over an hour, Chad, we managed to get a lot in. You got anything else? Anything you want to leave the listeners with?
No, that was all built up over a week. And no guests, but this week.
That's right. We didn't even mention
first ever episode, no guests.
Yeah, just the
and not because we couldn't get one. I mean, we could have. Like you said, it was let's have a chance to have our show for once.
We were overdue to just have a show with the two of us. And, you know, we definitely are going to have guests. We've got Steve Mears lined up.
Steve Mears.
Yeah, Mearsy. It's funny, man. Like, I always bring my dad up, but that's like, he's my sport. Like, aside from you, he's the only other person that'll talk sports with me. But, like, I was talking to him the other day. I was like, dude, guess who Chad pulled off for the show, man? And he said, who? And I said, Penguins play-by-play guy. And he's like, Mearsy. I was like, yeah, Mearsy. I was like, yeah. He's like, that's awesome, man. So, Mearsy will be on the show. Be looking out for that. And, we've got, you know, we're always looking for guests. We always got new guests lined up. I've actually been talking to a couple of people that I think would be a pretty cool episode. I don't even think I've had a chance to talk to you about that. So when we get off here, I'll mention that to you. But, we've got some pretty cool stuff lined up, man.
We're going to work on some YouTube stuff.
Yeah, there's going to be some new YouTube stuff coming. So if you're not already subscribed to 412 Sports Talk on YouTube, make sure you do. Follow us on Facebook. I think we're going to probably be getting a Twitter account here, a dedicated Twitter account soon. And
because people tolerate on me on Twitter, so that would be better for them.
Also, we have that. Well, actually, that'll be good for you to keep communication when you're in Twitter jail. But we are, I think, at about 960 likes on Facebook. So we're going to be doing a giveaway for 1,000 likes. So be sure, if you don't like us on Facebook, to like us on Facebook. Get us to 1,000, and we'll be doing a giveaway for that. Maybe the 1,000th like will get something. I don't know. We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll do it.
But like I said, we've got a lot going on, and it's all because we've had a lot of listens, man. People are, we can't do this without the listeners. So for Mad Chad, I'm Eddie Provident. We thank you guys. As always, we want to thank our sponsor, MCM Studios, and we will catch you all next week.
Thanks for listening to 412 Sports Talk. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. If you like the show, leave us a review, and be sure to tell a friend about your source for all things Pittsburgh sports. Find us on Twitter at MadChad412 and at Eddie_P_412.